Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And today's episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Happy holidays, Spoon. You're making me think like I should get my hat, too. Would you mind if I look for it?
Be my guest. Be my guest. The more, the merrier. Especially this time of year.
Spoon, I think you should do the honors. Who is our very special guest today?
Well, we have a very special guest that Maury and I go back with quite some time. And it is the artist, Peter Cree.
He's in the building!
Hi!
Peter Cree. What's up, Peter?
I'm an artist.
You are now.
And we're going to learn a lot more about that today, I can promise you.
Oh, great.
Peter, thank you so much for being tricked into, thank you for joining us.
It's such a mystery why you'd want me, but cool. You know, I can just rave on for hours, so.
Well, I'll be happy to clue people in about one of the reasons we've asked you on here. And maybe we'll dive right into a little of that before we go back through your origins, how you got into the pathway that led you to being an artist and led you up to your connection with acoustic guitars. And this show is called Martin and More, and this is about more than Martins, but it's also about Martins. And one of the things that Peter does is he does customized artwork on beautiful acoustic guitars, making them all the more arrestingly, visually beautiful. And I'm curious to know a little bit about the process involved in that, of course. But let's go back to, when did you first start to take on acoustic guitars as a medium, as it were?
It all begins, let's see, in the beginning, first of all, I've been devoted to acoustic guitar since I was 10 or 11. So it was just natural. I love playing guitar. I've been a guitarist for all that time, just devoted to it. And so apart from that, I was also, as time went on, I was a painter, I was a sculptor in Northern California, in Colorado, and Australia, a lot of places. But one thing that artists do as a natural behavior is we'll take whatever things that we're seeing or experiencing or whatever methodology that we're doing. And for me, it was... I started a restoration and conservation business right after my graduate school in fine art. As everyone knows in the world, being an artist is iffy financially. And so you really need to, if you think you're smart enough to make a living by producing images, you better be smart enough to make a living in as many ways as possible. So I started Cree Studios actually in the 80s, but I started it at graduation. 1990 was the official start date for the business. And so I began restoring antiques and fine art in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so there was a tremendous amount of great work to do and all that, but it puts you face forward into doing what I consider to be reverse woodworking or reverse finishing, meaning that you have to repair something that's been screwed up for 100 years. So you have to really know finishes. You have to really understand how it works, how wood works, how glues work, how everything that is part and parcel to restoration works. From that, taking on all those skills into my quiver, so to speak. Can't believe I said that. Anyway, it looks, in one way, it looks like I'm all over the place, meaning that One day I'll be doing an 18th century chest. Next day I'll be doing a recent table restoration. Another day I'll be doing a 300-year-old painting. Or another day I'll be carving something. I carved, for instance, architectural carvings for the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And so whatever comes my way over these 35 years, I've had to develop it. And those skill sets subconsciously merge together. So one of the skill sets that led to the guitar restoration, not restoration, but the guitar imagery, was the fact that I had to do touch-ups on repairs. So that means I'm mixing an artist's pigment in with finish and having to touch up wood so that the repair becomes invisible. And then you spray over that. So, years of doing that just starts to transfer over into what I call virtuoso finishes. And so that's the way I like to describe it, because a lot of people want to say that it's painting. It is painting. It's relative to painting. I paint, but doing acoustic finishes is so technically involved that it's a very special thing, meaning that, for instance, when I did my first one, scraping off the finish, and I'd done it many times with other things and instruments, but then it just occurred to me, gee, this would be cool to try this as a methodology of painting. So in doing so, the number one thing I had to really do was maintain acoustic quality, because in the art world I occupy, it all has to make sense. Methods, materials all have to come together and make sense. So if the guitar didn't sound good, if it wasn't a thin, excellent acoustic finish to begin with, well, then I'm wasting my time. Because people's first response is, oh, that's cool. That's really cool. What is it? And then the second response is, does that mess up the sound? And this is the world of functional art specifically, and that means that it can't mess up the sound. It has to be an improved acoustic finish. So that's what I was always trying for. In so doing, it quickly becomes obvious that a good acoustic finish, a great acoustic finish, has to be thin, has to be sturdy. It has to show that there's wood there, even if I'm putting pigment on and creating an image. It all has to go together. So that's how I arrived at that. So I first did a mandolin, then I had a Taylor 12-string I did, and it started looking very interesting, and started to show it to a lot of people. I was living in New Mexico at the time, and so I was showing these photographs to Larrivee, I was showing it to Santa Cruz, showed it to everybody, Taylor, Martin. Martin showed a real interest, Tim Teal showed a real interest towards me and what I'm doing. So that's how it came about. It's a very natural process. Let's put it that way.
So it certainly sounds like a very organic for where you came from. And you said something about Northern California. Is that where you originated?
No, I was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, so you're from Pennsylvania originally and ended up in California, and then and you mentioned even Australia. So how did that happen about?
I grew up in first in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and then in Woodbury, Connecticut. And all my education, everything else, I always had a guitar. Always. I was doing guitar more than I was doing anything else, really. Chasing girls I was doing. But guitar seemed to be a main interest. And, I went to a really good school in Connecticut, and they were always frustrated with me as a person, as a student, because I could somehow get by without a lot of work, which led to more time for guitar. So, so that's sort of it. So Connecticut, went to college at Bucknell University. So another 4 years here in Pennsylvania. It was pretty boring out in the middle of Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. It's a good school and a lot of nice people, and I had a good time there. But I was burned out from schools, from private schools. So the only thing I really wanted to do was experience the world. So first thing I did was move to Northern California, up in the Redwoods. And a buddy who was a buddy from Bucknell, his dad was retired from the AID service, so state service. And so they had all these acres up in Northern California, and he said, come on out, live in the barn, and start doing whatever you're going to do. So
Wow.
Did that for a year. We were digging up redwood stumps. We didn't have a truck. We didn't have anything. We had a chainsaw. We had horses. There was all these horses on the property. Anyone who owned a piece of this 1,500 acre wooded enclave could bring up livestock. So we didn't have a saddle, but we had some gear, right? So we'd rope up a bit and that, and there's this herd of horses, and we had some of that really good molasses stuff they love. They'll do anything for that. And we'd wade into this herd of horses and bring out, we had a little trick to bring out one or two we're going to ride, and then we'd jump on their backs and, see if we could hold on, because they would just take off with you. So learning how to ride bareback and all that. But we'd hook them up to stumps, and we had a Volkswagen. And so there were these huge redwood stumps. They were like 15, 20 feet across, had been cut in the early 1900s. And we dig out a section of that, and that was really good wood to carve. And I was making furniture, carving art furniture. And then we went through all that and basically learned all the stuff you don't learn in college. How to build, how to survive.
So how long did it take you to get to New Mexico from there?
A long time. So I went from Northern California, went back to upstate New York, entered an MFA program at Syracuse, stayed one day, decided I didn't want to do it. My girlfriend left me, it's all this stuff that went on in Syracuse. So then moved out to Telluride, Colorado, and for 3 years. And that was awesome, because in the mid-'70s, late 70s, it was a hippie town. Great. And lived in a tent up on Bear Creek and started painting. Huh. So, and then eventually got off of Bear Creek out of the tent and rented sort of a backroom space behind Olympic Sports and started painting. So I did 100 paintings in a year. And then painted the place, put in light, clip lights, and I called it a gallery. So I had a gallery, and I actually sold 55 paintings in about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it amazed me. It was because it was very easy to understand the work, meaning that it was mostly, it looked like Japanese ink paintings or abstract landscape kind of stuff, and it was attractive, so easy to understand. So from there, saved enough money and then traveled I was in England for 6 months. I was in just traveling, Italy, Pakistan, of all places, Thailand, the Philippines, then down to Australia for 14 months. living in Australia. And I wasn't allowed to work for that first year. I couldn't have a green card. So I was lucky enough to have a free house to stay on the coast, which was cool. And painted. And then I had this Morris Mini, like a miner kind of thing, but a panel truck. It burned a quart of oil per hour. So I'd fill that up with paintings, and I would drive to Melbourne, which is an 8-hour trek. And you see like 3 cars on the way, so if you break down, you're dead. And
wow.
So every hour I'd have to stop, pour another, I had a whole case of oil in the back of this thing, as well as all the paintings. So I finally landed a gallery in Melbourne, and they sold some paintings and got me by for that period. But then things happened in the States. My dad got sick, all that. So I returned back to the States, back to Connecticut for about 6 months, and then back to Telluride.
Wow.
For about a year, and then moved from there to Boulder. So Boulder was a fairly long stretch, and then and I was into designing mountaineering equipment and climbing, and I worked with 4 Everest teams. I worked with a lot of people who are very devoted to trying to kill themselves on large mountains. So I was trying to design a gear that would serve as a body bag as well as a sleeping bag. So
my God.
Apart from that, yeah, my God, yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I've had this long, twisted, interesting path. Then I finally got into grad school in San Francisco at the San Francisco Art Institute, which I loved. It was one of the highlights of my life, really. That educational experience was the most intense, emotionally abusive situation, and it was great. If you want to be an artist, go hurt yourself that way. It's a good thing. So, people who you respect as art gods, for instance, people you might respect as guitar gods, if suddenly you walked into a classroom with, 15 other people, and this guy is just tearing you to pieces, saying, wow, that doesn't work. So it's like the first year of grad school, it was a 3.5-year program for me. First year of grad school, those first critiques and stuff, holy Toledo, people would walk up to me and go, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need therapy? So
tough love, huh?
Yeah, it's the only way, in my opinion. Being an art cheerleader for someone does very little for them in terms of helping them improve. So the idea was to take you apart piece by piece, lay it out, make you get rid of things that don't work for you and keep things that do work for you. So that turned out, it turned out great. I was just an amazing program, amazing school. And so anyway, I was there about eight years doing that. And
wow. You don't look like you're 97 years old, but you certainly seem to pack that much to life into what you've been doing.
It's like, I just turned 32.
It's all that clean living.
I think there's a drone coming in. So,
but and you're absolutely right. When whether it's an art teacher, acting teacher, guitar teacher, the good ones know when somebody can take hardcore criticism that will actually help them, and help them sort of weed out the ego and focus on, like you said, improvement. So you were into guitar as long as you've been into art, if not longer, and eventually you said you ended up in New Mexico and you brought the two together with your first attempts to apply these unusual finish techniques. Now, by the time the people who are our Patreons at the higher levels that actually get to see the video version of this will have already seen some stills while we've been talking of some of your work. Okay. For those who are listening to this as a podcast, what I would describe, and I've tried to describe your work to certain people, that you you change the soundboards of these guitars to have this artwork on it that could be described as abstract, geometric. Sometimes there are things that are less abstract and that look like botanicals, like leaves, designs of leaves and things like that are absolutely gorgeous. I particularly love what you can do with a mahogany top, the top from the mahogany family, and the way you change the natural tone and add other visual tones to it, and really gorgeous stuff. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about these, all you have to do is look up Peter Cree, Cree, online to see these many guitars that he has truly made unique from one instrument to the other. And then you should also be able to find his information online if you would like to reach out to him about
it's all over. Yeah, you can't miss me, really.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody wants to commission you, for example. Somebody already has a guitar that they want to approach you about, or mandolin or other musical instrument.
I have to put in a disclaimer here. I have moved away from the guitars.
Oh, I see.
And one of the reasons is that most artists, if you get stuck in one spot, it's a bad thing. You burn out, and it loses the freshness, and it loses that feeling that you're searching. And one big problem with a lot of this stuff is that you become, you commodify art. Art is on so many different levels and so many different places and spaces that it is really easy for an artist like myself, and like when I first arrived here, working with Martin guitars, to compromise, because you're thinking about sales. And it's one of the worst things to do as an artist. No matter how great it sounds, how it might make ends meet or whatever, I always recommend do anything else but commodify your work. So as you see my work go in time, it moves away from representation and more towards abstraction. It's not, what I'm doing or have recently done is not really, it looks a little cubist is what people might call it. It's not. Technically, it's not. I'm an MFA. I have to stick with technical terms and things.
Yeah, sure.
And grouping things in the right spots. It's more like color field painting. And they take about 100 hours to do a top, just
Really?
a regular top. Yeah, because first of all, you got to take the old finish off, and you have to do that without taking wood off. You don't want to thin that top, especially along the sides. You don't want to do that, right? You're sticking to the ethos of quality guitars, quality work, quality music. So and I've got some films and things where you'll see me, it looks like I'm doing watercolor, but it's, instead of water, it's finish. And instead of those pre-made little, things of color, I'm mixing, I've got jars of artist pigment. And so I dip the brush in, let's say shellac, dip the brush in the pigment, and then, squirt some finished shellac or lacquer, one or the other, onto a plate, and then mix it, and then apply, let it dry, and then sand it. Sand it to ghost. And you do that over and over and over. And in real art, there's no plan. There's no map, all right? Because you're exploring. And so anytime you make a mark and you put another mark next to it, and it's just the same in music, right? You play one chord, you play another chord, and then the situation has to be resolved because two notes imply a third. So two colors, two forms imply a third all the time. So as you're doing this, you're going, well, this works, this doesn't work. So you sand off more of that and you redo it. So you have to do it over and over until it builds enough. And it's somewhere between 4 and 6 mils is what they're coming out to. And which is a technical, it's crazy because the amount of energy you have to spend on doing that, first of all, to get it to stick and to get it to build up and to get something that you think is a worthwhile image to put out into the world or to put on that instrument, to honor the instrument. I only work on good instruments for the most part. So it's all got to mix together, all that stuff. So it's an intense process. It's painful. Everything that artists like, right? if it hurts, it's got to be working. So, right? And so I probably put in 15 years, I think, about 15 years of developing this and working on this, and with some level of success. A couple of years ago, the price of guitars started to go through the roof. Things doubled and tripled in value. So to add another $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 onto the top of that, it was untenable. Not only that, but the more I went into it in order to satisfy myself in my imagery and to feel like I'm not making compromises and, to back away from all that stuff. It just went to a certain point where the guitars made sense. I'd still do one if the price is right and the job is right. You've got to let me do what I do. Yeah, you can't say, and I had a guy call me one time and say, "Can you do the Last Supper on my guitar?"
I was just going to say, can we have the dogs playing poker? That'd be great.
Another one. That's another one that's frequently asked from me. And, it's like, there's the money, there's bad work, there's the money. Your name is attached to everything you do. Sure. And everything affects you. So if you do one, you can do 200 great things. You do one crappy thing.
Yeah.
That sticks. So don't do it. So anyway, what has me really fascinated right now as a growth of an artist and as a musician is, first of all, separate it. Get back to playing well. I play every day. So at the end of my day, I come in and pour a glass of wine and I play. And it'll be, it can be 15 minutes, grab the guitar, 15 minutes, put it back, do whatever, grab the guitar again. But I do that at night. And that's what I do. And luckily my wife puts up with it, which is cool.
Apparently your girl chasing was quite successful. In fact, I can say I actually know that for a fact, but yeah.
Well, I lucked out.
She's a keeper.
My wife is like one of the best humans ever that I've ever met. One aside on that is when we entered in that first year of graduate school, the chair sat us down and she said to us, no matter who you're with now, over the next 3 years, you won't be with them. So, and we're all like going, that was number one on her list, right? It's just going to fail. And what happened is almost everyone we knew that happened to. So, and what we did is we married each other because we're the only ones who really could understand what our life goal and drive and all the financial issues and all the things you have to do to do that. So anyway, that's what happened with that. But getting back to the basic art thing that's going on now is that I'm sick of doing the guitars. It just comes down to it that way. So once again, as I was taught in grad school, you disassemble yourself. You disassemble your work. You lay it out in front of you. You take the things that work, and then you try to remove the things that don't work. The guitar is not working. It costs too much. And when I go into a gallery and show in a gallery, the first thing they do is they double it, the price.
Oh.
Right? So if I go in, I've got a $5,000 guitar, $7,000 paint job. Let's say, just for instance, that's at $12,000 right there. They double it. So it's now $24,000.
Wow.
So talk about putting it through the roof. That one thing, you're really making a decision to, yeah, it's good. It looks great. I've got a great show record. Looks great on the resume. Did it do anything for me? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it looks better on paper than the actual experience. So anyway, what I've done really, I don't mean to go on and on, but I will. And what I've done is one of the basic things of getting a 4 to 6 to 8 mil finish is it's transparent. And those light qualities are very interesting to me. And what I want to do now is start to work on glass or very thin veneer and bend it into shapes, things like that, and run light through the paintings. And I can layer up glass, for instance, and have, for instance, what time of day it will be will determine how many images you're seeing through these glass panels, things like that. So
really?
that's what has my interest right now, and possibly other light sources and bending, using the mirrors and the concave stuff and bending stuff. So that's what I'm interested in at the moment, and I'll probably start in on that about to take my end of year break. So around Christmas, all the way into February, I just stopped taking in all other work. I work on my house, I paint or I do tile work or whatever needs to be done. I'm constantly at restoring this 100-year-old house. But I'm going to get back into that and get back into the art world, which is like the music world, right? It's a career. It's a lifelong process with very little hope involved in it. It's what I do. It's what I need to do in my life because this was my marching order in my head to walk this path, to do this in spite of everything that it means. And I'll do it forever. My wife too. We're both on the same track. So she teaches. She's a professor at ESU. And she's devoted to teaching. I've never known anyone as devoted to students and to teaching as Josephine is. Amazing human being. So that's how it's going. Well, I'm kind of in a floating world at the moment, and you'll see, because my constant posting on Facebook, you'll see. I don't let much go by that I'm not posting about.
Fair enough. So this journey ultimately led you to Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
When did you arrive there, and when did you first attend the event that became known as Martin Fest?
We moved from New Mexico. We were living 26 miles north of Santa Fe in a little village called Chimayo. And so that was interesting. It was a very interesting cultural phenomena, and I won't go into too much detail on that. But after 3 years there, I came out here for actually my family in New York City. We had a death in the family, so I had to come out for the funeral. And then I have a cousin in New Jersey, and driving through in 2004, New Jersey again, had been in a long time, had been to the East Coast. I'm going, holy Toledo, it's so green. And look at these rundown mills. Oh, man, I'd really like to have one of those and turn that into a teaching workshop and all this other stuff, right? So we finally sold our place in Chimayo in 2006. And then just packed up sent all our stuff to my cousin in Washington, New Jersey, put it in storage, and then we're going, well, where do you want to be? Should we go back to Connecticut where the money is? Just hooking up with Tim Teal, all that. We moved to Bethlehem. We rented an old law office, which had, huge ceilings, 7 rooms. And I was able to talk. This is on 4th Street in Bethlehem, above the liquor store, right? And so we did that, and we started a gallery and had the Diva Gallery, Design, Innovation, Visual Arts Gallery. And we're hooking up with the schools around us and doing things until we, and then hooked up with Martin. Tim Teal with a bunch of other guys came over to an opening of the gallery and saw the work on the wall. And Tim says, "This is cool." And the other guys were going, "This is cool." And he said he's been looking for a musician who also paints, who understands acoustic finishes and guitar and luthiery in general. So they were looking at other musicians, which was the wrong direction, really. You really should look for an artist who understands music and makes music. So it's my bipolar self, art and music. It's all the same to me. In my head, it's all the same. When I'm playing guitar, I feel exactly like I'm drawing.
Oh.
And I really do. The same parts of the brain. It's not like I'm sitting there playing songs. I'm playing phrases that go on and sometimes turn into songs, and then back into phrases. I'm more interested in that. It's just like drawing. It's just like it's thinking out loud. I'm not trying to illustrate a vision. That's the difference between illustration and fine art. And I get attacked constantly for making these statements, right? Because people think I'm putting down illustration. There's a lot of great illustration out there. N.C. Wyeth, the whole Wyeth family, it's illustration that's gone to art, as far as I'm concerned, right? So there's all these gray areas that only academics really talk about. And gallerists in New York and Philadelphia, they talk about those distinctions, but that normally just pisses off people, because they feel insulted. They think I'm insulting what's hanging on their wall, which is the opposite, meaning that I don't care what you hang on your wall as long as you enjoy it. I don't care what music you play as long as you enjoy it. Sure. The end product is to be enjoyable. The interesting thing now is going back into the art world. It's not about that. It's about, am I relevant? And what I'm doing, is it relevant? Does it add to what's going on in visual arts? Does it add to what's going on in painting? And that becomes the question. It's a much more difficult question than going into your studio and just enjoying yourself. I still enjoy myself a lot. And I go to a place that is really akin to meditation. In fact, it's very difficult for me to get out of that headspace. If I'm in there for 4 to 8 hours, I'm almost incommunicado.
Wow.
One of the best headspaces in what we used to say in grad school all the time is to try to get to a place, it's not try, it's to develop the pathways to get to a place where you become nonverbal. That's a good word, nonverbal. Mm-hmm. And in music, there are times in music when I'm playing where my fingers are making the notes simultaneously to the thought. I'm sure you guys relate. Suddenly something comes into your head. You just go off on some tangent, and it makes sense. And that's when, and it happens simultaneously. You're not really thinking about it. You're not going, well, I'm going to just suddenly put an A minor in where a D should be. But
almost unconscious. Yeah.
It is. It's unconscious.
Subconscious, certainly, yes.
Yeah, there's a consciousness involved that it's just different. It's a lot like meditation, I think.
I was doing it last night, as a matter of fact. And there's sometimes where you wish, you wish I could remember what I did yesterday, but that's not really the point. Maybe sometimes you do.
No.
I know people who record that stuff, and when I've tried to do that, I never get around to listening back to it usually. But I know exactly what you're talking about. These days, what guitar are you picking up, or guitars are you picking up these days that you make your music with?
That's a very good question. Because I've had so many Martins, I've had so many great guitars, and like people say, catch and release. You date them for a while, and then you decide whether you want to marry them, right? So I'm in constant rotation of between 3 and 4 guitars right now. I'll get to the one that I'm playing the most right now, which is the SC13. And that surprises a lot of people because it's
SC13E, yes. SC13E, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the first ones that came out with the blue, sound hole. And that guitar, oh man, here's an interesting story to that and how I relate to it. When I first got it, living in this house with 8-foot ceilings and paintings on the wall and rugs and things, this is the place that good acoustic guitars come to die. Meaning that the sound in my house is terrible. It's terrible. So I play plugged in. I have a little amp, got a 60-watt Street Cube, and the volume's really low. And I put a little reverb, a little delay, make it juicy, and plug in. So the SC, for the first time, showed, and I'm bare finger style is how I play. It showed a way to get to a place with Martins that I normally take. Normally with most of my Martins, it takes about a year for me to constantly changing strings. The sound changes over that period of time. I'm cutting the nut, I'm raising, lowering the action, I'm replacing sound. I'm doing all this stuff which drives luthiers insane, but I know what I'm doing, I think. I know what I'm doing for myself anyway, not for them. But the SC seemed to promise a really great method to do what I do. So I gave it a try and got it from you, of course, Maury, where I only buy guitars from.
Thank you.
And that first year, I gotta say, it kind of sucked. It was very thin sounding guitar. It wasn't much beef to it. I know in a lot of critiques, they talk about that guitar as having evenness and all that. Well, I don't want even. I want dynamic. I want dynamic. I want the same sound that I'd get from any guitar, that I'm always searching for that sound, and I'll always try to dial in that sound. But it was weak, and with 11s on it especially was not my style. It was just with, high up and all, it was tinny. So I went to 12s, I did all this stuff, changed the sound, all this stuff to do. Eventually, after the year, the thing matured. And I started getting sound, and even in the worst weather, Pennsylvania's horrible weather for guitars, 80% humidity, all this stuff. And then during the winter, I heat with wood, so it drops it to 20. That's about to change, actually. But anyway, it's like the worst environment for guitar, and guitars change their tone constantly. Right, so you're jumping between mahogany, rosewood, whatever. So now I find this guitar is made of acoustic plywood with a koa top and middle sides, right? And what it reminded me of in college, second year in college, I bought a Yamaha 12-string, and I was using a National thumb pick and 3 metal picks for my fingers, and that was my style. And the amount of sound and the quality of sound, I was wiping the floor with anything that came near me.
Wow.
The Martins that were coming from, guys at school, playing with them, I was just wiping the floor with them. Wow. And that 12-string it was just one of those weird guitars that pop up and just blow people away. So I had that and played with that, and I played out, I played all that. And then when I finally got to Telluride, I was still playing in a couple places there and on the radio a couple times. It was kind of cool. But I felt I had to sell my instruments in order to put all of my attention into painting. I couldn't really just start painting, and then every time I had, every night I'd pick up the guitar. It would take away from doing that. So I sold them.
Yuck.
Which was drastic. Yeah, I know. I felt like I'd given away my children. But it was the right thing to do for that time. So there was like a 10-year or more span where I didn't have any instruments. And finally got to where making art was, I didn't have to think about it anymore. You know what I mean? Mastering different facilities, different methods, that's a different thing. But finally picked up the guitar, and it was safe to do so again, meaning that it wouldn't take my time away from what I considered my career. But finally got back into it with a major swing. It's like, oh man, I've missed you. I've missed you so badly. You're like the girlfriend that wouldn't, stick with me, kind of thing. So my love for the guitar and for instruments, that's forever. And it can exist. It can coexist with that. But somehow that SC with that plywood sound with bare fingers, since it was trebly enough and overly sensitive, that pickup is not the best, overly sensitive, I turned it to sounding a lot like that Yamaha sounds.
Huh.
And with the ability to, adjust bass and, all that stuff on my amp, or with I got a K&K preamp with it, which was sort of good, I don't know. But after that 2 years, maybe 3 years of owning that SC, that's what I'm reaching for.
That's
and
awesome.
Every time I plug in, even with dead strings, it sounds like $1 million.
A lot of our customers, when we were still a dealer, would ask us, why would you want to have an amp if you don't play out, if you don't, go to gigs, and if you don't leave the house with your guitar, would you even need an amp? Well, for things like reverb, delay, and changing the tone of it, as long as you have the idea in your mind that you want to enhance the way the guitar sounds and you're not against being louder, that's a great reason to do it,
Well, in my situation, which was similar to, I remember as a teenager, remember you'd stick your whole, you'd have this horrible K guitar or whatever it was, wild name guitar, no name guitar with incredibly bad action. You would stick your ear in the sound hole, right? And go, that's what I want to hear. Why can't I hear that on this instrument? I can't, this is what I want to hear. So it comes close to doing that, to having that control. I just had a buddy move up from a 150-year-old house in North Carolina, and he had 20-foot ceilings and great acoustics. Now he's living in Pittsburgh in a house of similar age and style. And he goes, I can't hear my guitars.
Oh.
And I was right, and he's got great guitars. I mean, great guitars, and a really good blues player. This guy, I played with him in college, and it's like, buddy, it's maybe you're going to have to go to where I went, to plug in, because it's really, the volume is not that far above your standard guitar volume. It's just that you can hear it well.
Good point.
And and you can adjust, and with bare fingers, I want to hear just the slightest movement of my finger on that string. There are definitely times, that's what you really want, because you really want to be able to control the sensitivity of the volume and tone of those strings. And wherever you are on the fretboard, you want to control it. It can be like, if you're down in the bass strings, you hit them hard, it sounds like a trash can lid, which I like because there's tone in there, right? I love that sound. And so you can get that, or you can do like classical playing off of your, which plays 50% flesh, 50% nails. I don't grow nails. I don't care for that. But living in the Southwest, I heard a lot of Spanish music, a lot of nylon string music, flamenco, all that, and nothing blows you away like a really good flamenco player, man. I tell you, they hit that guitar like it's like playing with hammers.
Very percussive.
Yeah, they turn into a percussive instrument, and fabulous. And like just like with the art, everything that enters my hearing and visuals and all that, it gets digested through my art brain, wherever that is. But it gets it's digestion, right? And what comes out is all these little influences, everything from that Irish little flip, to get that little extra and ring-a-ding-ding, and to the flamenco, strumming downward with the backs of your nails. All that stuff, the sensitivity that I get from that SC is fabulous. I just love playing that way. Now,
Very
the
cool.
other two guitar,
Very cool.
and so it's like plywood. I'm really open to plywood because two of the best guitars I've ever had were plywood.
See?
Well, when you call them plywood, of course, it sounds like a derogatory term. Well, as long as the veneers of the wood are actual tone woods, that's different than it's being boxwood with like a fake, facade on it.
Yes.
The true plywood guitar. Yeah, we're still talking about real tone woods that are laid down in the veneers. Yeah, yes.
Absolutely. Now, the other guitars I have are from a builder named Todd Johnston. Todd and our buddies. He did the big, colorful harp guitar. And so he built that, the mahogany harp guitar, which was one of the best paintings I ever did.
He builds under the name Oracle guitar.
Yes. Yeah. And he's always been very, very close to Martin. He learned at Martin. He has a love affair with Martin. A lot of parts, woods and things come from Martin. And he does his own thing, Martin-esque, with his own philosophies and his own points of view. And he makes a superb guitar. Superb. So I've got an ohm walnut, highly figured walnut guitar that was sourced within about a 25-mile radius of this area. Yeah, it's great. And his choice of tone woods and all that, this is a superb guitar. And big neck on it, walnut neck, flamed. Everything's flamed. The back, it looks like a claro flame. Almost looks European. Huh. And the top he picks just beautiful Sitka. So I've got that. It's an ohm because it's 3/4 long scale. And then I've got a short scale from him, basically a double aught 18, with a bear claw top on it that would knock your socks off, and mahogany that's highly figured mahogany for the back and sides. And once again, it takes me a year to break in a guitar, meaning that I have to futz with it. It's got to break into my climate here in this house. It matters for me. It matters a lot. And they changed drastically, especially coming new from Todd. And his gluing techniques and things like that, they take time to really solidify and really dry in. And then if you're patient with them, you've got something extraordinary after a year or two in that. So those are the three guitars I play, but I mostly play the SC because it doesn't change with climate very much. although the top is broken in, I can really tell the difference, on that. And I got to say, I think veneer breaks in as well. That Yamaha, the Yamaha, when I went to Northern California with that thing, living in the barn, I suddenly got, and I was doing the woodworking, I suddenly got the idea that guitars die, that they just wear out, that especially the Yamaha plywood guitars die.
Aww.
So I took a sander to it, took all the finish off of it, front, top, back, everything, and then just put wax on it. At first, it sounded really tinny, didn't sound good, but after a couple months, it resettled, regained its moisture, regained that, the wax loosened up, and it turned into something spectacular.
Wow, really?
Really different. And because it didn't have a Yamaha sticker, and I take off all my pick guards, I always do that. People were going, "What is that?" And I'd say, "Well, that's a long story."
That's what that is.
That's what that is. I don't know. It's a Yamaha, right? But then I took a sander to, and when I'm talking to sander, it was one of those. I didn't have good sanders, We had a drill, with one of those round glue-on pieces of.
Oh no!
And so that's how I did it. Man, it was the beginning of me never leaving things alone.
I knew I liked you.
I just don't leave things alone. If it's in the house long enough, it's going to be manipulated one way or another. It's either carved or painted, something.
Yep.
Just because. Yeah, I mean, the art mind is in a constant state of flux. It's in a constant state when you're in the state of creation. Your brain starts going off on its own, as we keep discussing. And I love that aspect of it. I'll never, that's our one professor in particular at the Art Institute. He was an art star. We had art stars. They're like movie stars, but smaller, less rich. And he'd say, well, you go into your studio and you've got to have a guru. You've got to have someone you really admire whose work. And you have these guys, they're when you walk in your studio, they're on your shoulder. They're sitting on your shoulder and they're watching what you do and you're listening to what you think they might say. By the end of your time in that studio, you should be alone. No one on your shoulder. You shouldn't be thinking about what Lawrence Juber might say, right? Mm-hmm. Or Leo Kottke or Eric, anybody, any great player, they off your shoulders. You're alone by the end of the session and that's what practice does. That's what that meditative state does. And it's who I am. I've gotten really good at. I taught painting at the Art Institute. I taught adult extension painting there, and what I get these people who had an art background, but they actually went into things that paid money, they went into smart stuff. And so they were coming back to find their way again, in the art world. And they'd be painting and all this, and it's really easy, those first few paintings. They're easy. And then you're going into this deep, dark place in your brain. And your duty as an artist is to work your way down into that cave. And you're putting in stairs and lights, and you go deeper and deeper, and it becomes a well-lit place that you're very familiar with. And so I would encourage them, because they would get to the edge of that dark place, and they'd be very afraid to go in. So I'd say, don't be afraid, you have nothing to lose, go in. Drop down into areas you don't know what are. You're an explorer, and explorers don't have maps. So learn that. Learn how to learn is a main lesson. Learn how to learn. Learn how to, like karate, right? You learn all these moves, you try to memorize all this stuff, and then you got to forget it. It's like in the guitar, you're learning chords, you're learning places where your fingers want to go. To a certain point, you got to stay with that, but then you have to forget it. To just let it go. Don't think. Stop thinking.
Get out of your head.
Get out of your head. Be in that other place, which is sort of a place in between here and there.
Huh.
So here's an interesting story I bumped into the other day. Sometimes on Facebook, what I'll do, it looks like I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm not. I spend like 10 minutes in the morning and post whatever comes to mind. It's effortless for me. But in my studio, I'll have the TV going. I'll have Facebook videos going, just one after the other. They just run through. And because I work alone, I'm alone so much, I really need that kind of company. Just the voices in the background. It's something, I guess, from my childhood, right? So I heard this guy talking about this doctor, his surgeon, talking about his near-death experience. And so take this with a dump truck of salt, right? So he's going on, he's saying, well, I had this experience and I had this feeling, and a feeling that I've never experienced before, this incredible peace and yada, yada, yada. I mean, everyone has a similar story. But after he was revived a couple times on the operating table or whatever he was doing, I think he got electrocuted. Actually, he got hit by lightning. That's it. He was hit by lightning. Woohoo! And which every artist should get hit by lightning, I think. but he figuratively speaking, but he had never been into music, but suddenly he couldn't stand not listening to classical piano music. And he said it's because it was the thing that brought him closest to that feeling of being dead.
No way.
Peaceful, yeah. And he started to study the piano and learn classical piano. And so he's devoted his non-surgical life to that, because that is the closest feeling he has come to of that feeling of peace and wellness and being at one with the universe, or whatever you want to call it. And I understand that. I really do. I really understand that where I go in that deep, well-lit, dark place, or not dark place, when I'm exploring in there and I've let go of control, and I'm in this type of frame of mind, and if I'm painting on a painting, I'm walking to the palette, mixing, and then I'm walking back to the painting and, making, the marks, walk back, mix, go back. And it's sort of this trance-like state between the mixing and the application. And it's the same with when I was working on it's all the same. When you let go of that control, when you let go of that, that's the greatest feeling in the world. In fact, that was what convinced me when I first found art in college. I'd been around it a lot, but I had zero art courses in high school or any of that, or zero, nothing. At this really prestigious high school, no art courses at all. It was math and science and all that, history. So, and if they ever had what they have in the facilities now, because they put in this fantastic art and music building, put in a $12 million deal that it's state-of-the-art, everything. Recording studios, painting, graphic, just everything. I would have never gone to Bucknell. I can tell you that. I wouldn't have been a history major at Bucknell. I wouldn't have been heading to the law school. I would have art and music. I mean, they could barely get me away from my guitar in the first place. But if they ever gave me that place, oh God, it would have been a very, very different story. So
Your divining rod led you there anyway through a much different path.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been really, I've had a very cool, I really like what I've done in life. It wasn't always the smartest thing for my well-being or for the people around me, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, and finally getting to this point in my early 70s here where I can kind of relax. You know, I don't have as much pressure for finances and other things, and just being able to pick and choose what comes into the business for me to restore, and pick and choose in terms of what is my next direction. So it makes itself known. It's like I said, you put one mark down on the guitar, one note down, you put a second, it implies a third. And that combination of three implies a fourth, implies a fifth. And then you go, that second one doesn't work anymore, so you erase that out. And then you keep doing that, and that's the methodology. And I use it for most things that I do.
Very spectacular. Well, I would like to put your brain to use with a certain game that we play on this show called 20 Questions. But I thought what it might be fun to do is we could try one where, because I know Maury's been dying to try to stump me.
Shut up.
Maybe we'll do one of the two of us like we normally do, and then we'll put you on the hot seat and see how you do. What do you think?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, 20 questions, as some of you know, yeah, exactly, is the game we like to play here, where one of us, in this case, the smart guy, thinks of a Martin guitar that is still available for sale out there in the catalog and in stores today. And the wise guy, which is me, I get to try to guess what he's thinking of within 20 questions. I can guess up to 3 models, but they count as 3 of those 20 questions.
Okay.
So, Swami, are you thinking of a Martin guitar?
I have it in my mind.
So, 20 questions is on the clock right now. And is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Genius.
Is this guitar a dreadnought-sized instrument?
No.
Does this guitar have rosewood back and sides?
Yes.
Is this guitar made with the traditional full-size dovetail neck joint?
Yes.
Does this guitar have pearl inlaid anywhere on the top?
No.
Ooh, ah. Is any part of this guitar torified?
No.
Ooh, ah. Does this guitar have 14 frets clear from the body?
Yes. Did you give
Does
up?
this guitar have herringbone trim around the top?
Yes.
Is this guitar an HD28?
No.
No.
Okay. Does this guitar have a 3-piece back?
Yeah, there you go.
No.
Uh-oh.
That's 10 questions.
So we have herringbone, but it's not HD28, and it's a dreadnought.
Not a dreadnought.
Oh, it's not dreadnought. Oh, I'm an idiot. I beg your pardon. Does this guitar have a short scale neck?
No.
You asked that. No, you didn't.
No, but
Okay,
is this
14 fret,
guitar an OM28?
Yes.
Da-da-da!
Congratulations.
Right.
Now you showed Peter how to play the game. You are awesome.
Yeah, you cheat.
Okay, so
He told you beforehand. I know, you know.
So, I can guarantee you the last thing he wants is for me to guess it correctly.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
If anybody's cheating, I was moving the goalposts as he was talking, but not really. So,
Right.
speaking of the dark depths of your brain, Peter, we'd like to both go down the ladder. Spoon's ahead of me with the lantern, and I'm right behind him with my pitchforks. Would you like to think of the guitar and we have to guess, or would you like us to think of the name and you have to guess?
Oh, I see.
Or neither.
Well, one thing that escapes me are some of the newer names. Yeah, I'm thinking of a guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see what you do with this.
Okay,
All right.
maybe we'll take turns. We'll tag team on this.
Let's
so we
get
have
it.
20 questions to guess what
Yeah.
guitar Peter Cree is thinking of right now. So, Maury, would you like to begin?
20 questions on the clock, and go. Peter, is this guitar made in Nazareth?
Yes.
Peter, is this guitar have mahogany back and sides?
No.
Peter, is this guitar the SC13E?
No.
I shot my shot.
Peter's, all right, well, then we've got to jump ahead. Is this guitar made with rosewood back and sides?
Yes. I believe so, yes.
Is this guitar long scale, Peter?
There's both out, but I'll say yes.
Does this guitar have a spruce top?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay.
Is this guitar in the standard series?
No. I don't think so.
Is this guitar in the Modern Deluxe series?
No.
Is this guitar in the 50? Oh. I checked
No.
my swing.
No, you didn't. That was a balk.
Is this good?
That was a balk. That's definitely a balk. Your foot came off the rubber.
I do that a lot. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Those of you listening that aren't watching the YouTube, Peter just charged the mound.
I did. Yeah.
Is this guitar? Does this guitar have pearl anywhere on the top?
Yes.
Is this guitar an OM42?
No.
That's one model guess.
Is this guitar limited edition?
Wait, excuse me. What did you say? M42? Is that what you said?
OM42.
It might be technically an OM42.
Oh, now we've got to dig deeper.
Yeah, it might be. In fact, it probably is. Yeah. Well, I'm not as up as you are on these things.
All right, well, that's fair
but
enough.
But I'm visualizing this guitar, right? And I'm trying to remember what I saw. I just saw it the other day too. So.
Do you have any Martins that have pearl on them?
Do I at this moment? No.
Would you like some?
Yeah. Triple Aught 42 is right up my alley. The guitar I'm jonesing for at the moment is a Double Aught 28 MD.
Ooh,
Can't
That's what
blame
I'm
you for
jonesing
that.
for. Yeah,
Right.
that was like on the top. Otherwise, I got to tell you, I'd buy another SC.
Ooh.
I'd buy the improved model. I would.
Well, and they're going to keep coming out with them. I mean, they're very successful. So, they
Yeah.
have the special came out, which had the fancy trim on the top, and we've had multiple ones, both with lower prices and higher prices. They'll definitely continue to put them out. So, and I mean, the ones that are made with higher grade woods and stuff like that, I think they're fantastic, and I wish I could have one too. I don't blame you.
I played an SC18, and I would grab my 13 above it any day.
Ooh, interesting.
Though I don't know. After you took that 18 and had it for a year and broke it in, you never know. But
Yeah.
Yeah, after I ripped it apart and put it back together, yeah, maybe. The 28 interested me, but that I don't know. If for the money, I'd rather spend the money on a double aught 28 MD than I would for the for that SC 28. Frankly, and just get a better SC 13.
But it's true. Even though the 13E has a Kaya core and just the koa on the outside, you still hear the koa. You're still reflecting sound waves off of that koa. You get that high glimmer, shimmer thing off of in the harmonics and stuff. Yeah, and just like the one that's made with the Zero Cody, you get a much different sound, much darker, warmer sound. That really is fascinating to me. That thin a piece of wood on the inside of that body, we can do that.
Well, you know how they talk about the difference of older guitars from the 30s or 20s or whatever, as live guitars. The thick neck, thinner materials in the body, so you feel it through your chest when you're playing it. Mm-hmm. That's the experience with the SC that I get. That's different from the the X-braced and all the other bracing and woods and every other thing that you can possibly imagine to do to a guitar. So I think the SA feels a lot like that vintage feel, that thumping against your chest, your body. And that's why they had to put that X-brace under the sound hole, because it was out of control, I'm sure. If they didn't do that, it would be vibrating, you right off your chair. So
nice.
Yeah.
But we're still going. How many questions you got so far?
No, that was it. You said you guessed it was the OM42. Only you would know whether it was the OM42 or not.
Well, an OM42, there's signature models.
Oh.
Yes, but is it available for sale right now? It's supposed to be something in the...
Yeah, it is.
Oh, so is this the 00045, Joey Bosanova?
That's one of the best guitars ever.
Basmati rice.
Yeah, right. Does it have toasted wheat underpinnings?
Yeah. Well, Maury always teases me that I can never remember how to say this guy's last name. Bonamassa, Joey Bonamassa.
You forgot his first name last week.
Was it Tiny Tim?
It's
Tiny Tim Cratchit signature model.
No, it's got a very unusual finish.
Oh, so we're still guessing. I thought you said we guessed it.
No,
wow,
not
this
really.
is a long game.
No, pearl on the top, but an unusual finish.
I think there is. Yeah, I think there is.
Does it have anything to do with Eric Clapton?
No.
I don't even know how many questions we're up to now.
I thought we quit 5 minutes ago.
The finish is so distinctive.
So you already came out with this was an artist signature model from the sound of it. So who's got an artist signature model right now that's got a distinctive finish on it? That
one of a kind finish. Come on, you guys. You're better at this than I am. Come on.
Wow. He thinks there's something wrong with these rules, but let me think real hard.
It's a John. Is it the John Mayer OM with the grayscale finish?
That gray finish. That gray. I need to.
Opinions of visiting artists on this program are not necessarily shared with the hosts by the host.
Honestly,
that was a controversial model. A lot of people were like, "What is this?"
It's a beautiful guitar that I want to put into palliative care right away.
I could see that. Now I see the appeal.
That's in hospice. That thing should be in hospice. Right. But it's a really
interesting marketing point. Yeah. Wow, I forgot. You actually, I got to tell you, Peter, I thought you were off the rails with your rules, but you're exactly right. Spoon, we got it within 20, but I thought there was some kind of a disconnect with what's allowed to be asked. But yeah, the OM45 John Mayer is the model.
Yeah, right.
Good on you, Peter.
So, I saw it the other day and went, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it does look much. I think it looks cooler in person because you get to see.
No, it doesn't. No.
Not to Peter, it doesn't. You
guys,
can't make me like it.
Forget it. But, I support Martin guitar. I love my neighbors. I love the guys over there. It's a great guitar. So what I think of its finish or not is irrelevant.
That's really what the artist thought of it. I mean, he's very hands-on, unlike some of the other artists who get signature models and say, "I trust you. Go ahead. Oh yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, it's beautiful." Mm-hmm. He was very involved, and particularly with this one, he was very involved to the point that it came out later than they originally scheduled it because he wanted it to be just so, and they eventually did it.
The Ohm 45 has got to be one of the best ever in general guitar. I mean, it's almost like you can't pick one up and not say it's fantastic guitar.
Yeah, even though, we had friends at Martin Fest that would bring theirs that were custom shops after in 1990, they were making them for a short time, and people then had custom shop ones made. They were basically the same thing, and they just as custom, and they were always dream guitars, guitars that you wish you could bring home. But
absolutely. Yeah, bring home to your mother. Yeah. I'm going to marry this guitar, Mom. I don't care what you say.
Not that color, you're not.
Well, son, I was...
right. Think of the children. Think of the children.
Well, son, I was against it until I met her, but I got to say.
right. Got to say, she sounds great.
And this has been awesome.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
This has been really good. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you if any of our patron members or just our general viewers want to buy you a guitar like the Ohm 45 John Mayer or your 0028 MD. Where can they find you on socials and online?
All I have to do is Google Peter Cree or Cree Studios, and I come up. You can't miss me. I have pages and pages of it and images I've got a lot of images out there.
Nice.
Like I said, I'm so self-aggrandizing on Facebook. I have to continually just pump imagery into there so they can do it. I tell you what, I would trade either an 028 MD or a 0028 MD for one of my pieces. Meaning I would do that for you for that trade. Wow.
Oh, so you're offering a barter situation here for somebody who is interested in your artwork. Fascinating.
I offered it to another person we all know and love a few months ago, and it just sort of came off badly. You know what I mean? It came off like I was trying to get something for nothing or something. I don't know. It didn't go well. Just the suggestion didn't go well. I love the guy. We all love him, and all that. But that's I was trying to barter because you can save if you got it for a certain price, you can save a lot of money. Because normally I'm starting at $5,000 or $6,000 for a top. I won't touch a top anymore for at least that. But nice. I would trade for that because I'm a guitar slut. Is what it comes down to. My friend Todd says, that's what he calls me. He goes, oh man, I just stand out on the corner with a guitar, just, I'll trade. I'll do anything for a guitar.
So please keep that in mind, folks.
Yes, all of it.
And someday you ought to interview Todd because he's a very interesting guy.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, we should reach out to him.
Really good guy.
I often will see him at an annual Memorial Day party, but I couldn't go this year.
Super brain.
Thank you for that tip. We'll definitely reach out to him.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, Peter. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for choosing me to just wildly describe my inner dark hole, right? Whatever. Ugh. And then the drones. There's the drones.
That's for the next episode.
I want a drone guitar.
I thought a harp guitar was a drone guitar.
I'll tell you one thing that I've learned from the drone situation. Americans are not afraid of an alien invasion.
No.
Fair enough.
We think of it as something that we might consider.
Hey, Mr. Spaceman.
Right?
And on that note, from all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.
Okay, my friends, you're wonderful people. I love you guys. Peace.